So now we're going to have a conversation with Jennie Rose Halperin, who's the executive director of Library Futures, which is an advocacy group that was launched in 2021 to stand up for a technology positive future for libraries. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and the kinds of things the organization does. But let's welcome Jennie Rose Halperin.
Hi,
And
thanks so much. It's so good to see you.
you were, paying attention. You were listening to our last session here. I'm just curious before we get started. Is there anything that you want to respond to that you heard in our conversation with Kelvin, Carmi, and Michael Blackwell?
Yeah, absolutely. I first want to thank the other panel for their excellent comments. I was really inspired by so much of what I heard, and I took some notes. What I really loved was the emphasis on equity and what Michael called bridging the content gap and allowing for self-discovery and sort of self-determination through content and through literature, and how libraries can present and can create safe spaces for people to explore quality, non-discriminatory content, or as we say, provide access to provide open access to information in the service of the public good. And so, just looking at my notes for a moment, so Carmi had also said that what we're fighting for is a more equitable publishing ecosystem, and I really, really could not emphasize that enough. I feel like too often publishers discount the role that libraries play in an equitable and in a successful publishing ecosystem. It's beyond just how much libraries purchase or providing licenses to content. It's also how libraries, as Kelvin, also bringing Kelvin's comments, as Kelvin said, the ways that libraries improve discovery, the ways that libraries improve, knowledge of literature and of materials. But again, I really want to emphasize, because this is a digital equity panel, I really want to emphasize the equity aspect of that. Something that I think is really important to keep in mind is that, fundamentally, libraries exists to provide access to culture for the public good, right? And so people historically have understood that, and again, have worked in cooperation for hundreds of years. Libraries predate copyright, which is something that we love to remind folks. They've worked in hand in hand, publishers and libraries, for hundreds of years to provide access to print. Why that should be significantly different in the digital realm, I think that for publishers, they don't necessarily see everything that libraries do in order to promote reading, in order to promote access to culture, and really to uplift communities and to provide communities new ways of understanding their world.
Well, I was going to ask you what a technology positive future looks for libraries. Sounds like you've just sort of defined that for us, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What does a technology positive future for libraries look like?
So again, as Carney says, where are people? They're on their phones, they're, on their computers, they're on their Kindles. And I think to some extent that's true. I mean, there are so many reasons why someone may want access to digital content, and they're not always, just like, I prefer to read on my Kindle. People are estimating that, between 7 and 10% of college students who are entering university are print disabled. And so print disability is an absolutely crucial reason why libraries provide such important access to culture. And so, when we say a technology positive future, we know that our world is moving toward digital content. I mean, Andrew, like, we're having this conversation over video chat, right? Like, we couldn't have done this necessarily even 10, 15 years ago, and libraries are and should be part of that digital future. And so, but instead what we're seeing, it's particularly in the collection space, we're seeing a real lack of access. We're also seeing a lack of ownership. Libraries are not able to build full digital collections in the same way that they might have built a print collection. Preservation is at risk for that reason as well, for archives and for libraries. And, one thing that I think is really important, because I know this is a publishing focused discussion, I do think that it's really important for publishers to think about, back catalogs, to think about, what will happen if they provided better access. So, you can see that this has been successful in other spaces, with publishers entrusting libraries to really preserve and to hold on to back catalogs that maybe don't hold the same kind of commercial value as they might have. Um, and I think that more of that, because we're also not saying necessarily, that, well, we're definitely not saying that the, everything should be under the same model. The question is, what are the models that best uplift, preserve, and also hold on to culture while providing libraries the most autonomy? And the last thing I want to say is, particularly in the academic space, we really, really see a high level of consolidation and a high level of data analytics that are kind of creeping into our public systems. So we see this with Elsevier. There was a recent blog post that just came out about, what does Mendeley, which is a research citation um, product that very, very, very many academics use, what do they know about you? They know when you're reading articles, they know, all sorts of information that frankly, should not be tracked at all and should not be tracked by libraries. And so, it is in some ways the giving up of traditional library services like collection development, like metrics and analytics. That's the name of the game, right? Privacy, like even basic technology tasks, cataloging. All of these tasks have, because of austerity, because tech moves faster than libraries in many cases, they've sort of been given up to vendors and given up to publishers. And for us, what a technology positive future looks like is for people who work with the technology every day, people who you know, are the most at risk of being targeted by the technology, that they are able to really to build it, to be a part of it, and to have a say in what happens to their patron data and what happens to their own data.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing at Library Futures since the launch. And one project that caught my attention was you recently worked on a news project with the Albany Public Library and the Albany local newspapers. So tell us about that.
Yeah, Andrew, it has been such an incredible whirlwind of an 18 months. I really can't even tell you. We've done so much. We sent more than 100 repair kits to public libraries around the country in cooperation with iFixit. We worked on a broadband um, reporting project with Consumer Reports. We wrote a paper called Control Digital Lending, Unlocking the Library's Full Potential, which you can find on our website. We've held over a dozen events, including with the new ALA president, Emily Drabinski, and we're supporting the library ebook legislation in the 8 states that were mentioned in the last panel. You can see all of our activities through last January, so through like 5 months ago, on our annual report, which I hope will get linked. That's a really fun way to sort of explore the kind of work we do. But to answer your question in terms of the news project, this has just been such an exciting project that has really blown me out of the water. And for us, as a small new organization, where we really shine is through partnership. And so this project in particular has shown me, and I think when the toolkit comes out in late May, it'll be a toolkit and a case study of sort of how we did it. But what it shows is that, when a publisher steps into a space from a digital equity point of view. So in this case, we were working with a news organization called Harkin and the Albany Public Library to build a project that would bring in patron voices, that would be co-owned, that would be outside of the pay meter, and that would be preserved long-term by the library. So what we did was we put an easy widget on the Times Union page and on the Albany Public Library page, and we solicited questions from the public on a story about a rapidly gentrifying area in Albany. And we received tons and tons of questions about everything from what did the street look like in 1900 to I remember a movie theater that was there, in the 70s when I lived there. Can you tell me about what happened to it? And then, there were deeper questions like why is there such a big difference between the north side of the street and the south side of the street? And working together, the librarians from Albany and the Times Union News organization set out to answer these questions. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, to Carmi's point, the publishers took a risk. They put something outside of the pay meter. The librarians took a risk. Staffing in libraries is, a perennial problem. It's perennially difficult for people, and so everybody took a risk, but really came together from a space of trust and came together from a space of innovation. And we worked together for 5 or 6 months to design a project that really worked for everyone. And through that project, the Times Union has seen many, many more subscriptions. I mean, we are just amazed. Honestly, the last meeting we just had almost left me in tears because people were just so amped about this. And it really was an example of how, a publisher and a library can work together if they're willing to accept that risk and to do something really different and to do something really innovative and exciting. And so we've seen a number of subscriptions to the Times Union from it, and we've seen a continued collaboration and partnership between an important local resource, between an important local paper, and what I would argue might be one of the most important local resources, which is the library. And so out of this collaboration, the Times Union is going to put more news terminals in at the library. They have access to this technology to continue doing local news reporting in cooperation with the library. And it's really been a great success from a very small grant and just kind of taking an open and collaborative approach to publisher-library relations. And so I'm really looking forward to that report coming out. It'll be coming out in early June. And hopefully we'll provide a lot of information for how other libraries could do this. Because the last thing that I'll say is this really came from a place of concern when we first started sort of digging into the local news context in Albany. Albany used to have 10 papers and now it has 1. But because the Times Union came to the table, because they were really willing to work with us and they were really willing to work with Albany and be a community resource, we were able to see, what kind of magical things could happen.
Wonderful. Very interesting. So I urge people to check it out on the Library Futures site. It's an interesting project for sure. Few minutes, we're running out of time here. We have to get to our next session, but I need to give you a chance to tell people who are curious and interested in supporting Library Futures how they can do that. So tell us a little bit about how people can support Library Futures, how they can learn more, and what the future looks like for Library Futures.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to get involved is to come to our events and to reach out to us if you're interested in partnering in any way. I mean, I've named a number of partnerships we've worked with. We are fully open to exciting partnerships with all sorts of organizations and libraries in particular, and with publishers. And so please just reach out if you're interested. We're currently rebuilding our coalition, which I guess leads to the next thing that I'm really excited about. We have 2 fellows working with us, Emily Finch and Julia Ziskina. Emily is our community fellow and Julia is our policy fellow. By the end of the summer, we'll have a whole slate of new resources for folks, including a Library Future copyright checkup. So if you are a public librarian and wondering, what you can do to protect copyright and to work with copyright, we will have some resources and checkups and checklists for you. We'll also have a lot more policy resources for folks who want to bring ebook legislation to their state. And we are always open and willing and want to work with other states that are considering ebook legislation as well. We'll have a number of conference presentations going on throughout the summer. We'll be at ALA. So if you are at ALA and want to say hi, we'll be doing a happy hour and also supporting our partners like Every Library in their events as well. We'll be at ebook Friday with Michael and Carmi and Kelvin too. So lots and lots coming up. But I think the main way to support Library Futures at this point is to reach out and to have a conversation and to really keep an open mind. And also, if you are excited or interested in controlled digital lending and bringing that, which I know we did not touch on, but it is a core piece of the platform that we work on. If you're interested in controlled digital lending, please reach out. I think I mentioned it, but we are chairing the NISO standards on controlled digital lending organizationally and can support you with resources, which is another piece of the resource puzzle that our fellows will be working on and providing to folks this summer is, how to really talk to your community about controlled digital lending and what it can unlock for you.
Jennie Rose Halperin, thank you so much, Executive Director of Library Futures. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I'm sorry I'm a little sniffly because I came back from New York last week with a cold, but I'm really excited to see you, Andrew. And I really do want to thank the panel that came before. Carmi, Michael, and Kelvin are super inspiring, and their work is so important